Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Business. I'm Jarecki, and I'm thrilled to guide you through today's episode. Our mission, to inspire and empower you on your journey to business success. Join us as we uncover valuable insights and strategies designed to elevate your entrepreneurial experience. Today, we're thrilled to have Thomas Smith, President of Aging Workforce Solutions, joining us. As a leader in addressing the challenges posed by the aging workforce, Thomas created innovative solutions for businesses and individuals navigating this demographic shift. With 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 daily, his expertise in retirement planning and the concept of early retirement is more relevant than ever. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into Thomas's insights and strategies for managing a significant transition. Thomas, it is wonderful to see you again. How are you doing?
Ed, it's great to be here. I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to share some thoughts with you and your audience at a time when I believe that there's a considerable amount of change going on in the world in general, but here in the United States and in the financial services industry.
Thank you for being part of the show. And so, to start with, for our audience, could you share a little bit more about yourself and your business?
I got into financial services through some mentors who convinced me that it was going to be a good spot for a career move. And about 10 years in, I recognized that there were some trends happening with the 10,000 people a day hitting 65 and the challenges that the business world was going to have with recruiting and retaining employees across now 5 generations that have disparate career goals and disparate methods of communication. So, how are they going to recruit and retain them in a way that would further the goals of the organization as far as their business plan? And one of them that I backed into through a consultancy was how are they going to disseminate this incredible amount of intellectual capital that the boomers had accumulated and disseminate it to their employees in a way that would allow them to take this and become much more productive based on the decades of what's between some of the ears of the professionals that were going to be leaving their organizations.
And addressing the first question, how do you define success today?
Today, I think I define success in my practice in that I'm content at the end of the day that I'm sticking to the fundamentals of what has always made me successful, which is cultivating relationships with prospects, closing business, and getting referrals. It might be oversimplified, but if I'm doing those fundamental activities, there's a very high percentage that I'm going to have success at the back end of those, in that I'll be satisfying client needs and getting compensated for it. So when I don't do that successfully, I believe that resentment starts to creep in and starts to infect me in a way that distracts me and takes me away from the fundamental behaviors that I have as a solopreneur with some limited support staff. I position myself that sometimes I have to take care of certain challenges that come up that remove me from the fundamentals of my day-to-day business. And I have to be very diligent in looking at how I devote myself to those versus delegating that to someone, which can't always be done. So I was brought into the business by a fourth generation Wall Street professional. And he always taught me that if you do things the right way, you'll have a great career, you'll make adequate income, and you'll make changes, you'll make differences in people's lives. And it took a while for me to have that manifest itself, but I think it really became clear when I delivered my first death claim back in 2007. So I was in the business for 15 years before I had to deliver a death claim, and it was to the wife of a good friend. And she said, everybody in the hospital and the church and the family said, I wish there was something we could have done to help. And she said, you're the only person who really did anything that's going to change my life. And the light kind of went on. So that's why I get up every day.
Great story. And so this journey is not easy, and you just shared one specific experience, but what are one or two of those challenges through your journey that you can share with our audience, including the lessons learned?
I think that for me, the challenges have been surrounding myself with team members and strategic partners who share a similar vision that I do as far as how we're doing business and how we're being successful. One of the biggest challenges I've had is identifying technology that can support my efforts and not get me dragged down into having to manage the technology and learn it front to back, where it gets me out of that fundamental mindset. It's a new distraction, and is it really going to bring value to what I do day to day? Because you have general agents, you have managers that are always saying, oh, this is the new technology we're going to be using, and it's incredible and wonderful. And then you start to implement it and see what it's actually doing, and it's not what it was projected to be. And so distancing yourself from that in a captive relationship is often difficult because that's the new toy. And so as I've become independent, I probably have done wrong by myself by managing by avoidance a lot of the good technology that's out there. The good news is that in the course of the past 2 to 3 years, I was introduced by accident to two technologies that will dramatically change the face of my business, the outcomes I can deliver to clients, and the opportunity for very functional strategic partnerships that will significantly increase my revenue and the opportunity for future referrals. And the real key to those technologies is they're turnkey, and maybe disparaging myself here, but they're kind of idiot proof. And that I can even plug into these and utilize them effectively from the first step. And I don't have to go through a big learning curve. And I don't have to have this incredible network of support teams to guide me through things. I can take them and run with them from literally the first couple of days that I implement them. And now it's almost created a second job in the cultivation of strategic partners, but it's starting to come out with closing business that are inherently going to put a referral stream in place by the effectiveness and the outcomes that these technologies are delivering to me. So I looked in a drawer the other day in my office and I saw 8 different software disks that I had just thrown in there over the years that I bought and I really never used because they were too complicated. They weren't that relevant to what I wanted to do in my practice. And so this was sort of like the blinding glimpse of the obvious when two other people in my world said, you really need to talk to this person. And in the course of less than 18 months, it has made a transformational change in how I prospect for clients, close business, and get referrals.
Yeah.
So it's getting back to the fundamentals, and this has really supported me fine tuning those, keeping resentment out of the space between my two ears. And I've really met some incredibly talented and wonderful people along who are now working with me. So that's always an incredible upside because having that functional social element when you're working with someone who's really contributing to the well-being of your business as well is an incredible upside for me because it further distances me from that resentment issue.
You mentioned the disparaging aspect, kind of feeling that, well, this is easy. Here's the challenge that so many people have. We don't have time as business owners to sit in there and try to figure out how to do this, how to do that, et cetera. And if we're spending all of our time doing that, or if we're spending our core time when other people are working to work on our business, to grow our business, to gain new clients, to help our clients. The challenge is that then we're doing that stuff on nights and weekends. So I agree with your point. And as a technologist, with the guidance that I give to the tech companies is they've got to create solutions that are more turnkey. And we also need seamless end-to-end solutions. And I know a lot of the CRMs really work down that path of trying to create seamless solutions, but there's so much complexity in some of them. And I've got two of them. One is incredibly easy and intuitive, and the other is not. And I have spent months trying to work on the one that's not. And I'm at a point where I'm about ready to shut it off just because I don't have the time, energy, or desire to spend money on bringing somebody in to get it set up and then to have to figure out how to maintain it. It's not intuitive. So I agree with you that that's the way the software solutions in today's day and age need to be developed to help enable the business owners out there versus having to go through training just to figure out how to configure bits and pieces of the thing. Salesforce, for example, awesome, just incredible system, but it is incredibly complex and requires an entire education structure to learn how to use and apply it appropriately. That just doesn't work, especially for small and mid-sized business owners out there.
It's funny because, at my age, I'm in my early 60s now, and I'm interacting with people in their 20s, and I get a lot of friction because I still have paper, pen, notebook system for at least an element of my different processes. And I think there's something that, for me, the palpability of paper on pen reinforces the retention of a lot of the information when I start with it that I don't really get on a keyboard. And whether it's my friends' kids or younger people that I have to interact with, I get the grandpa, I get the dinosaur, all the names that come across, but everybody has their own process. And I think understanding that, I mean, as a business coach, I think that it's probably somewhat important for you to understand how your clients think, how they process information. And I think the last 5 years, with incredibly transformative black swan events with COVID and how the world has adapted technologically. I mean, this technology we're using right now was somewhat of a niche that techies used, and now it's the norm.
So
And the evolution of AI, it's really become immersed in so many areas of not just business, but interpersonal communication and how it's making it easier. And I think that in my world, I think we're starting to see the implications of it, but the evolution of the migrant populations moving to the Western societies is going to change a lot of how the world turns every day. And I have a pretty good footprint in the medical space and starting to see healthcare systems who are incurring incredible expenses for what they have to do to address basic healthcare needs of their migrant populations. And it's one for the economy. And it's something where I started out as a pre-med student, and my professor suggested I go into business after my second explosion in the organic chemistry lab, where they said, I think that business might be a better spot for you. And I've always had an interest in healthcare. It's a fifth to a sixth of the economy. And I think that there's such incredible room for functional change in that sector. And I think that between the COVID crisis, the lessons learned from that, and now what we're going to have to do with assimilating these populations in so many different ways, medicine will be on the forefront of where technology will help to facilitate them becoming productive members of societies that they're in. and really transform their lives because I would say the vast majority of them had very little, if any, medical care in their native countries. And so I actually started Aging Workforce Solutions when the migrant issue started to happen in Western Europe. And the rationale behind what World War II, with Russia losing 26 million people, all of the countries in Europe, in the Far East, how that impacted their perspective on immigration. And it's now sort of coming full circle. Maybe I read too much about this, but I think it's something that when you see the depth of poverty in some of these countries, how they're going to be able to embrace these new populations, integrate them into society, and make them functional members of the workforce is going to be something where technology is going to play an incredibly important role in this. And I think AI will be up there with the dissemination of knowledge. But I think that the lesson learned from COVID, as far as things like transparency and effective public health mandates, will be an essential part of cost containment. I mean, I was just reading something the other day where we spend more money on diabetes management than we spend in our defense budget.
Well,
So these are areas where I've been able to implement some of these new technologies myself and create the basic outcome is that I'm delivering more revenue to companies across the medical continuum, but across the business continuum as well. And that's just something that's fundamental because of the effective turnkey, uncomplicated nature of these platforms. I mean, one of them, I can assess 100+ different incentives across the tax and regulatory landscape in less than 5 minutes to recover revenue and contain costs in a number of different areas that can be transformative to their business. So that's something that was an eye opener for me. And I think that every day that I connect with somebody and I put them through the initial steps in this, it's an eye opener for them, in that they often approach it with regret and because of money lost in the past. And I try to remind them that this is the opportunity moving forward. And this is how a collaborative relationship is going to support your business in so many different ways.
if there was one or two key takeaways to offer our audience as thoughts that they must consider for their business and life success, what would those be?
I think that human resource departments have to be a little bit more nimble in looking at different populations and how they might be able to integrate them into their workforce. The senior population is one. I think that having them be more cognizant of mental health challenges, which is one of the big things that came out of the COVID experience, is showing up in retention numbers for corporations. They have to really devote more resources, and that doesn't have to be expensive, to support their work population with mental health support in a way that's functional for them. It's accessible, it's not expensive, and it's private. One of the big issues with getting your employees to implement mental health support services is they do not want it in their medical history and they do not want it in their work history. So we've got a few tools in our toolbox that help to facilitate that, that are dramatically reducing recidivism in the workforce and in the student populations. Students, whether high school, secondary education, if they're dropping out because of mental health challenges and they've assumed a lot of debt, they're never going to be able to monetize a career to negotiate that debt down and pay it if they don't get by this hump that's now a big obstacle in their way. So that's one thing. And I think that for entrepreneurs, and I've met a number of them on Alignable where I met you. I think that there is a huge need for business coaches to be able to functionally, and I've talked to somebody about this at the business school level. There was a company I was introduced to that helps to profile employees for future engagements within a company. I think that for companies to assess or have a tool to assess the functionality of a potential employee in their workforce before they're hired is something that this was another blinding glimpse of the obvious when this consultant showed me what he did is how they're helping to hire, as he put it, the right butt in the right chair, and how it's reducing a lot of the waste that comes with having to let an employee go after they're hired, trained, put into a situation where they wind up not being successful. So I think that what I'm seeing is that these technologies that this was a 3 to 5 minute exercise. And he did it on me. And it was like he was following me around for the past 20 years. That's how well he knew me in 3 minutes. My capabilities, my ability to interact, to be effective on a team, to be independent. This all came out of a 3 to 5 minute exercise he put me through. So I think that some of these technologies are going to have to be embraced in different ways that, people are talking about AI being a job killer. And I think that there will be some attrition, that people will be replaced by AI. But I think that the amount of opportunities to utilize it and to create demonstrable upside is really being ignored.
To that point is I've gotten this insight and feedback from a number of different sources and people. And it's AI is not going to replace jobs. People with AI skills are going to replace people without those AI skills. And yes, the jobs are going to transform and change, but the world continues to grow, evolve, and adapt. And so I don't think there's going to be a shortage of opportunity, to your point. I think it's having the right type of skill set, mindset, et cetera. And yes, there are some wonderful tools out there that do an incredible job of helping people first understand themselves, and then, of course, understand how they interact with others and how they can improve and understand so they can improve that overall interaction across environments. Any final thoughts?
I'm I'm just kind of amazed in how in well, I had a pretty consistent model to my practice for the first 20 plus years of it, and how in less than four I've transformed myself into being much more efficient and much more nimble and much more appreciative of how technology is bettering my practice, my relationship with my clients. And to your point, if you're not getting it done, then you're grinding on Saturday and Sunday to try to figure it out for Monday morning. I like to keep resentment out of my personal and professional life. And I have never had an easier time of doing that than I have in the past 4 plus years since we got into the COVID situation. And this is all by accident. And so one of the people that's coached me, he's constructively critical of me in a way that I work with him because he understands how I think. And a lot of times he'll hold things back and then he'll introduce them in a way that is like an aha moment. And he said, you have to be aware of where there's positive energy moving around you. And in the case of these two technology platforms, one of them he's very, very big on. He goes, how did you meet this person? And I said, spontaneously. He said, it was on one of these speed networking things. And in the course of he goes, this is exactly what I was talking about. He goes, this is not interpersonal, he said, but this is one of these tools that's going to deliver a different level of energy to your business. And he said, I think that in the course of the 20 plus years I've been working with you, he said, I've never, and I'm not a highly emotional kind of a guy, I'm kind of placid, but he's very intuitive. He said, I've never heard you sound better as far as the prospects of your business moving forward. So I think that we all have to be a little bit more cognizant of where opportunities are coming from and to leave yourself at least a little bit open to being adventurous enough to stick your toe in the water. I dove into both of these. After I stuck my toe in, I was in the pool in the deep end. So I'm very appreciative that these circumstances came up and very content with myself for getting a little bit out of my normal mindset and embracing things from an early stage that are they're changing my life in a huge way. Also very appreciative for the opportunity to share some of my stories, and I hope that a few of your audience members are able to take some of this and run with it in a way that brings change to them as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Some very powerful messages in there. I want to thank you all for joining us today, with a special thanks to Thomas Smith for sharing his insights and success tactics. We hope you feel inspired and motivated to tackle entrepreneurial challenges with innovation and adaptability. Remember, success is personal. Define it for yourself. And as you move forward, consider this. What strategies do you believe are most effective for businesses to support and retain older employees and other big transitional changes in our workforce? And finally, always remember to embrace change, seek growth, and adapt to the ever-evolving business landscape. Thanks again to Thomas and to all of our listeners, and we'll see you next time as we continue exploring more stories from incredible entrepreneurs. Stay resilient, stay innovative, and have a wonderful day, everyone.